Hi, and welcome to this week's roundup of hospitality and brewing news. A few articles this week. First is SIBA, the Society of Independent Brewers and Associates, which is its new name, has launched its new manifesto. It launched it at the House of Commons, so we can tell from that exactly where they're planning to do all their campaigning on this, which in an election year is not a bad idea, but getting politicians back in this now and getting them to keep their promises after an election is two totally separate things. So I'm not going to hold my breath on that. Overall, I'm going to say this now, before I dive into a couple of parts of it, it is a good manifesto. It is generally focusing on the right areas that I believe they should be focusing on. I have a bit of a problem with it though. So the first part they're looking at is like a guest beer guarantee. They want any pub co or any chain of pubs, tied estates that have over 500 pubs. So these are all the pubs that are that are underneath the pubs code adjudicator. They will all have to have a guest beer, and that's 500 pubs. And I don't think that's going far enough. I mean, as an example of this, JD Wetherspoons owns 900 pubs, and they're everywhere. So you see, it's about half a pub code, about half the size of Wetherspoons is what would be sort of like liable for this. But there's a lot of pub codes out there, a lot of tied houses, and these estates where there are only 50 or 100 pubs, and that can take up quite a large area in a region. Why should a guest beer not be in those? So you can easily have a village or a small town that, half the pubs are owned by this one particular pub co, and they don't take in guest beer. So anyone with a local brewery around there is kind of missing out on that. So I think that needs to go further than 500. It could well be that they're just asking for a little to then, get the thin end of the wedge in. The other thing that they're looking at on the manifesto is transparency of ownership, but only of the beer. Now, again, I don't think this is going far enough. So they want it so that on your pump clips, on your labels, you know exactly who brews the beers. You get things like old speckled hen. It's a Green King beer. They don't really advertise it as a Green King beer, but it is a Green King beer. I think it needs to go further though. It needs to, and this goes back to pub chains. So as an example on this, and I am reading notes sort of thing, Chef and Brewer, Farmhouse Inns, Hungry Horse, Wacky Warehouse, Flaming Grill, Seared, Bellhaven and the new Nest chain of pubs are again all Green King. And they don't really advertise that fact on a lot of the outside. So you can walk into these places not knowing who owns them. It needs, if you want to give the consumer proper choice, and it has to be from the door before they even walk into a pub. They need to be able to choose whether they want to go into there or not. If they want to, fine, not a problem with that. But it's almost like some of these pub codes and some of these breweries are hiding the fact that they own these to give a illusion of choice when in fact there actually isn't one. The other part of the duty reform of the manifesto they're looking at is a duty reform, saying it needs to be looked at again. Now, there's two elements to this that I think one shouldn't be in there in the slightest, and the other one I don't think they're really looking at right. Now, the first one is that they're targeting cider manufacturers. They're saying, for duty to be fair, the cider needs to be paying the same rate of duty as breweries. Cider duty is different because cider is different. I've run both a brewery and a cidery, and I can tell you now, cideries may have lower duties, but they don't have higher profits. It's a much more cash flow intensive business, and you don't get as much profit out of making cider as some breweries seem to think. So I think they really shouldn't have bothered putting that in there. It's picking a fight that doesn't need to be picked. They seem to have this whole manifesto focused on just brewers, so why have they put cider in there really? Up to them, but I don't think that should be in there personally. But the other one is they're calling for draft relief to be increased to 20% from the 9% it currently is. Draft duty relief is an absolute mess. This is the whole thing where they turned around and it was originally a 50 litre container size, and before they realised that, oh, hang on, some beer goes out in 20 litres and 30 litres. Even the photo shoot they did had them lifting up 30 litre kegs or 20 litre kegs, and it's a complete mess. It's still the whole thing that stops pubs from being able to do takeouts unless it's a package duty paid keg, which, to be honest, I don't know of any single pub that is even bothering to pay any attention to that. I don't know of, although I haven't asked, so don't blame me on that. but it just doesn't seem to have made any difference whatsoever, and the whole thing's a mess, and it needs to go. Now, every time it's brought up, it's saying that it's done to, and on this one, they're saying it will, and I quote from this, to help people to support their local community pub by increasing draft relief. It won't. Draft relief goes to regardless of the size of the brewer. So the bigger breweries can just use that to offset the cost of the beers that they sell to the supermarkets at a lower price to keep it cheaper. It's not going to help the pubs. If you want to help the pubs, the relief needs to be given to the pubs. So I just think that's a bit daft to go for that. So overall, though, I think it is a very good manifesto. I think SIBA are definitely moving in the right direction, but I don't think they're going far enough in some of these aspects. So the next news is there's no IndyMan this year. So the Independent Manchester Beer Con has been... It's been the first festival of its style in the UK. Now, I'm going to say now, personally, it's not my sort of festival. I don't particularly like it because it's just a bit too crowded and cramped for me, which shows you exactly how popular this festival is. And it's a shame that it's decided to not happen this year. I don't know if they're going to bring it back. I kind of hope they do. But it definitely opened the door for private companies to be able to put on beer festivals, and that's why we do see a lot more of them, of these sort of things these days. Possibly too many, which kind of leads to the other part of this section, which is there was also the International Brewing and Cider Awards Festival in Manchester this week. I went along to that, and it was shit. I can't hold back on that. There's multiple reasons it was badly done. It's been getting knocked left, right and centre in the press, and I kind of feel sorry for the organisers of it. They organise a great awards ceremony. They get in some of the best judges from around the world to judge the beers, but they've never done a festival before, and it really showed, and it was really not good. So if they're going to do that again, I hope they actually talk to people that do organise festivals and figure out where they went wrong. So next one, a bit of an update on the sale of Eebria to Beer 52. So when this happened, it was a pre-pack administration done very quick, and it left a lot of pubs and a lot of breweries out of pocket. So pubs had ordered the beer, paid for it, and the breweries were like, well, I'm not delivering it now, I'm not getting paid for it. Breweries had delivered some beer and weren't getting paid for it because Eebria just closed up and all debts were wiped out. Now, since then, in the last week, Beer 52 had advised pubs that had been out of pocket to get hold of their banks and use the chargeback to get their money back from that for, they purchased something and the goods haven't turned up. So that just shifts the debt from Eebria / Beer 52, which has been wiped out, to the banks. So they've got to foot the bill for that. Then, in the last couple of days, Beer 52 have now said to any pub that has been left out of pocket and not been able to use the chargeback, they will give them full credit for it. So they can get beer off Eebria from that. Which finally means that, Beer 52 is forking out. Now, this is good. They should have done this in the first place, and they're saying they're doing it to keep customer loyalty. That ship's already sailed. They've really, really annoyed a lot of customers already. And plus, this is still leaving the breweries out of pocket. I spoke to one brewery last weekend, and they're out of pocket by $5,500. And that was just by, that one invoice that didn't get paid. Now, that doesn't seem a lot, maybe, but that's, 3 months' salary for somebody that's working there. And that's, a couple of months' rent. This is a lot of money for a brewery to keep them on the toe, keep them going. So they really need to pay that out if they want the breweries to go back to them. So the next article on this is Fourpure is in trouble. So this is the latest in a long line of big names that we're starting to see struggling this year. And excuse me, for those that may or may not remember, several years ago, Lion, the big multinational brew co, bought Fourpure, bought Magic Rock, a few others, and this was going to be their push into the UK market. In late 22, they decided it wasn't working, so they sold Magic Rock and Fourpure to a company called Odyssey Inns. Now, this week, Fourpure have applied for a CVA, which is a company voluntary arrangement, which is basically a way of restructuring the debts and saying, we can't pay you all of our debts in the time period that we have agreed. So how about if we pay them in a bit of a longer time, and we should be able to manage it like that. So they still believe they can pay them off. They just need a bit longer time to do it, which is kind of sort of giving you the impression that trading isn't going as well as they hoped, and it's not for anyone. So they're looking to spread that debt out over a longer period of time, and that they're confident that it will happen, that they're able to pay it over a longer period of time with the reduced trading. Otherwise, they'd be looking at something else like further investment or liquidation. So with this, though, both Magic Rock Brew Co. and Odyssey Inns don't seem to be affected at all, which kind of shows you how parent companies can spin off sub-companies and keep them all totally separate for the tax man and profits and losses and all of that. And now to end on a completely biased note, the Historic Brewing Convention is coming to Manchester this year and has just announced its list of speakers, its full list of speakers. I'm biased about this because I'm one of the organisers, and it's managed to get to the who's who of beer and writing and journalism, historians, academics, to come along and do 2 days worth of talks, and it is going to be absolutely amazing. I think I'm the only person who knows what all of the talks actually are. We've not announced all of those just yet, but it's going to be well worth getting the ticket and coming along for that if you've got any interest in beer history and how that is starting to come back in to the modern brewing world. So that's it for this week. It's been quite a busy week. I've had a few more opinions on the articles this week, so I hope you don't mind that too much. Cheers.